This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
I can't believe it has come to this, but somebody needs to inject some optimism around here. And I'm nominating myself for that rare job. Next on this week's episode of Michigan Podcast.
But there's going to be one team that's going to play solely as a team. No man is more important than the team. No coach is more important than the team. The team, the team, the team.
Looks deep for Anthony Clark. Waits for it. Gets caught.
They said you can't be Ohio State. Now what?
Brady gets terrific. Throws it, and a touchdown, Knight again. Schultz just before Brazil got him, and a leaping interception by Woodson.
Harbaugh back to throw over the middle. Caught by Collier at the 5 on his feet. Touchdown, Michigan. On its way. It's good.
He's 5'7", 179 pounds, a junior at Michigan. But Jamie Morris packs a wallop, and he delivers for Bo Schembechler.
And here's your first play. Pressure coming. Sacked. It is Glenn Steele, number 81, who fought his way through the traffic.
Option. And Robinson calls his own number, and he's going to score. Oh, an easy touchdown for Robinson and Michigan.
Win it. We're going to win the championship again because we're going to play as a team. And when we play as a team and the old season is over, you and I know it's going to be Michigan again. Michigan.
Go Blue. I'm Steve Deace, and welcome to this week's episode of Michigan Podcast. So, some of, if not a lot of, the post-game commentary I have seen following the 31-20 victory over Michigan State in East Lansing on Saturday night, I think has been so over-the-top negative. And keep in mind who this is coming from, guys. I am a complete and total sports coward. I own it. I admit it. I have a problem, but frankly, I don't want to confront it. I'm probably, maybe just even born this way, and I may die this way too. I cut and run at the first sign of adversity. I am confident we will lose the first time the opposing team gets a basket or a first down. So, I mean, at this point, those of you asking me to change, I can't. It's really on you for continuing to follow me. It's a little bit like after a while, you stop blaming Samaj Morgan and the people keep putting him in the game. But we'll get to that in a minute. Right? So, given that backdrop, and given the framework of myself as a fan, where nihilism, Vanta Black, doomsaying while contemplating self-harm is pretty much where I hang out on game days. If I think it is time to ease up a little bit, have a broader perspective, and a lot less pessimism than either I got some really good gummies right before we started taping this, or poop's getting ridiculous out there. Since I didn't have any gummies right before we tested or started taping this, I'm going to go with option number 2. A couple of things here. Just throw some things at you, drop some knowledge on you. It's been 100 years since a Michigan coach has started his career 2-0 against Michigan State. Harry Kipke, 1929-30. Last time. Bo couldn't do it. Lloyd couldn't do it. Jimmy couldn't do it. All Hall of Fame coaches, they couldn't start 2-0. In fact, they all lost their first game to Michigan State. We are playing 3 redshirt freshmen on the offensive line. We are down to no available playable offensive tackles. our three best players on offense are a player who was at Alabama last year, an 18-year-old wide receiver, and an 18-year-old quarterback. In other words, 3 redshirt freshmen on the offensive line, our 3 best skill position players, all were guys who weren't even in the program a year ago. Indicates a complete and total rebuild had to happen here on the offensive side of the ball. We were terraforming an offense here. Oh, and the offensive coordinator is in his first year too. We're 6-2. We shut Michigan State up. Way better Michigan teams than this one have gone up to East Lansing and lost. The last time we rushed for this many yards against Michigan State was 30 years ago. We had Tyrone Wheatley and Tim Biakabatuka in the backfield. We don't have anything close to that right now. Nothing close to that. We're 6-2. We control our own destiny in the Big Ten. If we win out, we will at worst tie for second and then leave it up to Big Ten tiebreakers to determine who gets to Indy and who does not. And the rest of our schedule, Purdue, a bye, Northwestern, Maryland. 3 teams will be heavily favored against. We have way more talent then. And then the game against Ohio State, who hasn't beaten us in a non-COVID year since 2019. That was another decade. We thought Marvel movies were still good in 2019. That's how long ago that was. There's nobody in the Ohio State program that's going to wear a uniform in that game last Saturday in November. Who knows what it's like to beat Michigan and win a pair of gold pants? We're the youngest team in the Big Ten. I don't understand hey, and during the game, there's some things that have to be corrected. I mentioned Samaj Morgan. I've just never seen a player that's I've been here for every Michigan game live since 1983. I've never seen a player more consistently permitted to hurt his teammates than Samaj Morgan has been this year. It's crazy what's going on there. And then the play where out of nowhere, Justice Haynes looks like he's going to run for a touchdown and Samaj tackles him. And you see Justice Haynes just throw Samaj down to the ground. Did you watch that in frustration? I mean, I don't know what recruiting pipeline he represents. I don't know, man. I don't know why he gets to play. There's 16 receivers on this team. Somebody's got to be less, lethal to his teammates than Samaj Morgan. Devin Gardner saying in his podcast, at this point, you just start blaming the coaches for continuing to put him out there. Still catching punts inside the 5 for reasons only Allah knows. I mean, I don't know what that is. So if you want to be critical about in-game elements, well, my friends, you have come to the right place. All right? Just mere criticism line to your left, the self-harm line to your right. And you're allowed to go back and forth with a fast pass. But this sort of meta-criticism...
Well, Steve, you just said a couple weeks ago that Cerrone had to beat Washington or he probably wasn't going to make it.
You're right. But then what did he do? He beat Washington. Set up the rest of the schedule. It may not be pretty, but we're going to be 9-2 going into the Ohio State game with a chance to play our way into the Big Ten championship game. That should be pretty much what a successful season is every year. That we go into the Ohio State game with a chance to play our way into the college football playoff and or the Big Ten championship game. Given how loaded these schedules are going to be moving forward with these super jumbo conferences, I mean, have you seen next year's schedule, for goodness sakes? We asked an 18-year-old kid to go play in Lincoln, Nebraska, on the road there, at USC, at Oklahoma, in his first month as a collegian. 3 of the, top 7-8 programs of all time? You know how many teams have ever won at Oklahoma, Nebraska, and USC in the same year? I'm going to guess it's a pretty small number. And we owe the coaches an apology for this last game as well. Sam Webb and Denard Robinson pointed this out. There were actually 16 RPOs called. Bryce chose to run the ball on 15 of them.
Well, Steve, what did the coaches told him to do that?
Then it wouldn't be an RPO. Then it's just a handoff. Okay. No. He chose to do that. Let's just be honest. Our Wunderkid quarterback, if you watch the game, they wanted to throw the ball. They came out trying to throw it. He just wasn't up to it. The unit wasn't up to it. It kind of flinched on the road. It happens. I watched John Navarre as a senior flinching on the road at Oregon, at Iowa, at Minnesota, a game that was kind of won in spite of him. It happens, especially when you're 18 years old and a freshman in a rivalry game. He flinched on the road. Thankfully, we had a plan B to go to at halftime. After a terrible second quarter, we had a plan B to go to with the running game. And we got out of there with a win. Which in a rivalry game, that's all that matters. Just get out of there with a win. Oh, by the way, the 80 points Michigan has scored its last 2 trips to East Lansing are the most it has scored in consecutive trips to Michigan State since 81 and 83. That was 40 years ago. We haven't had that many rushing yards against them since 30 years ago. Again, we're in the playoff hunt. We got through the front end of the schedule, still in the playoff hunt. We're now in the part of the schedule where we can get some guys healthy. We can rest some guys. We can develop some guys. I really don't get what the meta criticism is about. I really don't. And I say this as someone that, doom speak. I mean, when it comes to doom speak, I speak parcel tongue. You can't out-doom me. And not have just offed yourself by the, second quarter changeover. And if I am the person saying, easy, Tiger, then this has just gotten kind of ridiculous. We have a freshman quarterback, a true freshman quarterback. We don't have a backup quarterback. All right. We are down to our final playable offensive tackle. We are starting 3 redshirt freshmen, and 2 of them were not supposed to start. So they weren't getting groomed all offseason like Jeff Backus and Steve Hutchinson were back in the day. We didn't even know Blake Frazier was going to put on enough weight during the offseason after being hurt much of it to even be able to play. He's our starting left tackle right now. Justice Haynes wasn't even in this program. Andrew Marsh was a good wide receiver recruit. He wasn't a 5-star, like a top 100, 150 kid. He's by far the best wide receiver we have. The defensive tackles, frankly, have been a disappointment from what we were billed heading into the year. And yet, we're 6-2 with a top 10-ish defense. We're heading into the part of our schedule now that we can get this freshman quarterback up another level so he's ready to make some hopefully big-time throws against Ohio State. And we're set up to go into the game playing for all of our season goals. Remind me again what the complaints are about on a meta level. During the game, there are definitely things we could be asking questions about. And if you want those questions asked and you're looking for hopeless answers, my account is @MichiganPodcast. All right, we should hang out. But when the emotion of the game is over and hopefully logic and reason prevails, we're in a pretty good position here. Schools that we recruit against, LSU, Penn State, outfire, Florida, outfiring their coaches. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. I usually look for things to be negative about because optimism is a foreign concept to me. But I do not get the level of drain circling around a lot of our fan base right now. I think it's just completely unwarranted and way out of bounds. Or I just had some really good gummies before we started taping this episode. I don't know. Folks, the best way to support us here at Michigan Podcast is to do so via our Patreon page, patreon.com/Michigan Podcast. We are posting picks there year round, whether it's Major League Baseball, whether it's college basketball, whether it's the NFL, and of course, college football. Our win total best bets, you would have gotten those, for example, before the market moved. About half the books in the last few days moved on Texas under 10.5 down to 9.5. If you were following us on Patreon when we posted that, you would have gotten that before that number moved, right? So we give you all kinds of great data and picks, PGA major picks as well. We've cashed 8 of the last 11 majors in professional golf. So if you want to support us on our Patreon page, it's just $10 a month there at patreon.com/Michigan Podcast. That's right, just $10 a month. Patreon.com/Michigan Podcast. That's patreon.com/Michigan Podcast. And thank you so very much if you're one of our supporters already. All right, so now we find out for sure whether y'all have just gone crazy, all right, and need some more Bo in your lives, or if I just had a couple of really good gummies before we started taping this. Because a voice of cynical reason. My token Bucknut friend is with us now. Mark Rogers. Check out his channel, The Voice of College Football, on YouTube. Lots and tons of great college football information year-round. Good to see you, brother. How are you?
Doing well, Steve. My biggest complaint this week would be that Michigan's giving up touchdowns in the final 10 seconds to not cover.
Yeah, some of us.
Help me out here.
Dude, I saw that 14.5 on the road in a rivalry game, so that's just begging for a backdoor cover. So some of us needed that touchdown at the end, if you know what I'm saying. Some of us needed that bad. All right, hey, so listen. All right, in-game emotion, right? When you're in the moment of a severe contest, almost no emotion that doesn't cause you to act out as a psycho or sociopath is bad, because the heat of the moment is in the moment. When the moment is settled and solved and finished, especially if you get the ultimate outcome that you want, that should be, don't you think, when said emotion, it kind of, declines and reason sets in. For the life of me, and I say this as a guy that I can drain circle. I said earlier, Mark, when it comes to doom saying, I speak parcel tongue. All right, I'm fluent. All right. In game, man, I can do it with the best. But we're 6-2. All right. We control our own destiny the rest of the way to at least finishing in some form of a tie for second place. The next 3 games are essentially warm-ups. Hey, you lose one of those, you want to melt down, I'm totally fine with it. But we have way more talent than Northwestern, Maryland, and Purdue that we're playing. And we even have a bye in the middle of that. We have a true freshman quarterback that we said, hey, your first month of your career, we're going to need you to go play at Nebraska, Oklahoma, and USC, 3 of the top 7-8 programs of all time. Going to need you to play them on the road. You're a month after your 18th birthday, and then carry the entire offense for us if you don't mind. Our 2 best skill position talents are a running back that wasn't here last year, who's a transfer, and a wide receiver who wasn't here last year because he was in high school. We are now starting 3 redshirt freshmen on the offensive line, 2 of whom were not supposed to start. So they were not getting the, because people,
Jeff Backus and Steve Hutchinson started.
Well, they were getting groomed all year long. 2 of our guys were not supposed to play. We don't have any more playable offensive tackles left. So if Sprague or Frazier get hurt, I really don't know what we will do. And we have a first-year offensive coordinator, and we're still sitting here where all of the season goals we had on the table, Mark, are all still there. We beat one rival. We haven't played the other one yet. Nobody on that other rival's rosters ever knows what it means to even beat us. No, they haven't done it in 5 years. So forgive me, on the meta level, help me understand why a sizable contingent of Michigan fans are melting down right now. Because again, if there's an abyss, that siren song calls my name, okay? And I don't see it at all. I don't get it, brother. So if I'm the one thinking, I think y'all need some more sunlight, I think this thing's gone whack. Mark, what's your take?
So remember, the Voice of College Football. So we cover all these teams, and I do all these shows and have done all these shows for years and years and years. So I rub elbows with the likes of like Nebraska fans, Miami fans, which caused me the previous Friday night after those 2 teams lost as heavy favorites to come home after I had not seen either game and just was going to enjoy watching the games late at night, to fire up the live stream because I just had to point my finger at Nebraska and Miami fans, because what they are accustomed to expecting versus what the reality of the situation and the team and the program and how that sits are 2 different things. So I'm going to do the same thing to a certain extent here, although don't put yourself in the place of Nebraska and Miami. Obviously, this is a school that's won 3 consecutive Big Ten championships very recently and a 2023 national championship. But you also have to understand that's what Michigan fans are comparing this team to. And so the evaluation of the program / team can be different than the evaluation of the situation. Mm-hmm. The evaluation of the situation is pretty darn good, like you just outlined there. And you did both, actually, the team and the situation. The situation, we thought, unless, at least I'll speak for myself, I thought unless this team really just had issues with a true freshman quarterback and all the other downgrades from previous years, that this team would compete for the playoff and would make the playoff. I had the same evaluation at a lower level for Nebraska when people asked me my projections, and I threw it out there obviously a couple of weeks before the season was, there's a difference between what this Nebraska team can accomplish because of the schedule and how it sets up versus my evaluation of where this program is and where this team is. Those are two different things. I think the record could look glossy in both of these cases. Well, Nebraska blew this game against Minnesota, but this is a team that has the identity that they had a few years ago. If you just look at the box scores, again, the Washington game was a clear example. And then I just took in the game again just a few minutes ago and the stats to come up with the same assessment. This is a lower grade version of what they were under Harbaugh, 21, 22, 23. And they should be pummeling the likes of Michigan State and Wisconsin. Well, some teams just aren't built to do that, but they can rise to the occasion. Well, this team hasn't risen to the occasion, though, against, some teams go out and just take care of business against Sparty and Wisconsin and the dregs of the Big Ten, but then they turn it up against Oklahoma and USC. Well, this team hasn't done it. Of course, that Washington game was the best example we've seen, and that's a pretty good Washington team, but they did have them in the big house. And so I think this is a good football team that may make the playoff that I'm not going to feel has a legitimate shot to do anything in the playoff.
How many teams with a 18-year-old quarterback, 3 redshirt freshman offensive linemen, and their 2 best skill position players are an 18-year-old who wasn't in the program last year and a guy who was a part-time reserve running back at another power conference school the year before? How many of those teams sound like end up being the complete teams that you just described? Not very many is the answer to that question. Not very many.
Well, in a sense, Steve, you're arguing against yourself because you're telling us our program doesn't have this.
No, what I'm saying is the previous coach strip mine that didn't recruit the last 2 years. And it wasn't, if you can just see in the recruiting rankings, the recruiting classes sucked by our standards. Some of it was his fault. Some of it was that the administration didn't want to pay guys. So there's a reason why there's 3 redshirt freshmen stepping in for injured players and not sophomores and juniors. We basically skipped 2 recruiting classes. Those 2 classes sucked. That's why there's no good players out of that class, and all the best players are young players. Secondly, we're rebuilding the roster. The recruiting classes the last 2 years have actually been very good. This one, again, will be very good. Thirdly, you have a rookie coach. I hate being the person calling for patience because it's just not how I'm wired. But to expect that after a massive coaching staff drain and the roster drain, that we were just going to instantaneously replace that, I just don't know how you can sanely make that case. But if there's another problem here, Mark, I don't know how many Michigan fans watch teams other than Michigan, because I watch everybody. Tell me who this complete team is. Tell me who it is.
Well, they don't exist in college football. It's Ohio.
The Ohio State, Washington, and Michigan, Washington games are literally the exact same game. Almost the exact. We talked about that 2 weeks ago. They're almost the exact same game. They're almost the exact. Now, listen, I would much rather have, when in doubt, I can just throw it up to Jeremiah Smith. I'd rather have that for my margin for error than whatever the hell Michigan's going to try to figure out for its margin for error. But these teams are not that much different. They're not that much different. The circle has been flattened. There really aren't any complete teams. All right. Georgia used to score 43 on Ole Miss because it could. Now it has to. Now it has to do it. Okay. Now it's got to score 43. I mean, Clemson is a team with 4 first-round draft picks. They might go 6-6. It's a completely different era than it used to be. And I think maybe a lot of Michigan fans aren't watching the rest of the sport. But if you watch the rest of this sport, guys, if the playoff ended today, it is possible Vanderbilt, Indiana, and Virginia and Georgia Tech could be in the college football playoff. All right? So I think maybe some perspective about the rest of the sport. There's a reason why Josh Pate says Michigan 2023 was the last great college football team. And he's exactly right about that. You know what this looks a lot like, Mark? It looks a lot like the NFL. And in the NFL, if you don't have a top-flight quarterback, then if the rest of your roster is pretty good, then it probably matters whether you're playing home and away. You can look great at home and look terrible away. If you don't have a good quarterback, it doesn't matter how good the rest of your roster is. You're probably going to lose. Doesn't that sound? That sounds a lot to me like what college football is like today. And so what you mentioned, Washington, best game Bryce Underwood's played. Last week, he absolutely flinched, man. They tried to hand him the keys. That was the game plan from the beginning, and he couldn't get it done. And the coaches are like, at halftime, after that awful second quarter, like, oh, bleep, we're just going to lose. So we're just going to plan B, all right? Give the ball to Jordan Marshall, Mr. Ohio, and Justice Haynes as much as we can, and let's just get the hell out of here with one more point than Michigan State and try to figure out what happened to our 5-star freshman phenom in this setting because he flinched. It happens, man. There's some like meta pronouncement from this I really don't understand.
So, Steve, there's not anything here that I necessarily disagree with, but it almost reminds me of a world that you know way better than I do, where stances by some people don't change, but the ground under them has changed.
And they stick to their narrative no matter what the facts say. Oh, yeah, I know a little bit about that. Yeah,
yes, you know a little bit about that.
Familiar with it, yeah.
So, based on our conversations the last few weeks, I don't think the Oklahoma game was a bit of a slap in the face for me in regards to where I thought this team was and could be. Now they've stabilized since then, but I don't know that our opinions, or at least mine, has changed on Michigan. I've been pretty steady of where I think this team places as a top 10 to 15 team in the nation. I'm just wondering where this optimism, what's come through this Wisconsin, Washington, Michigan State stretch that has made you so optimistic. Again,
I'm not optimistic.
Situation.
I'm not optimistic. I just didn't join Hail Bop. That's all. I'm not optimistic at all. I'm actually pretty realistic. In fact, the season has gone almost exactly the way that I thought it would. All right, Bryce's development's been a little slower than I thought, but I didn't think he was throwing for like 3,000 yards or anything like that. And I thought they'd lose at Oklahoma early and lose at USC early. Those are back against the wall moments for blue blood programs, and it was just going to be too much to ask a freshman quarterback to go into those places and win, and I turned out to be right. And I thought we'd probably get program wins against Nebraska and Michigan State just because our program is more stable than either one of those two. And so that means you kind of just create ways to win games when maybe you don't necessarily, dramatically outplay them. That turned out to be true. And then I thought we'd go into these last few weeks against these opponents we clearly have more talent than, and then that was where we really see Bryce develop and be more prepared to be a difference maker in the game at the end of the year. That's pretty much what I said all offseason. It's what I put in my college football preview. It's what I told you. That's kind of exactly how the whole thing has played itself out, in fact.
So, again, I understand the optimism because the situation plays into Michigan's hands, unlike last year when they had to play one of the toughest.
Just to be clear, it's more about realism versus nihilism. Okay. More than optimism and pessimism, but it's more like realism versus nihilism. But go ahead. Yeah.
And I also understand the optimism. If you are looking at a situation where this is going to be our quarterback for 3 years, I see him getting better. He shows us 3 to 5 splash plays. Well, albeit not Saturday night, but at other times most of this season. And we expect him to get better. And he seems to be a guy that's going to study and do all the right things to get better. I don't know about the head coach showing that he's on this trajectory that he can take it to an elite level. But I understand the optimism, again, about having a team that can reach a goal of making the playoff. And that's going to be an accomplishment for this team. And then I can see the optimism toward the future to a certain extent. It's just, I don't know what's really changed in the last few weeks. That Michigan State game and that performance seemed to be a carbon copy of Wisconsin and what they did against Wisconsin, or failed to do against Wisconsin, but just gut out a win against a really bad football team.
The difference between the two is they're in reverse. All right. Eventually, we had Wisconsin ganged up on the running game, and eventually we actually had to go to the passing game to put them away in the second half. This was the opposite of that. All right. So Bryce and the receivers made several big throws in the second half against Wisconsin, so that the distance you felt when you watched on the eye test on the field could be felt on the scoreboard. Like you never thought Wisconsin was going to win the game, but you just kept waiting for Michigan over and over again. Like, why aren't you guys up 31-10 yet? Kind of a thing, right? You don't think Wisconsin was going to win. You're just wondering why Michigan was playing with its food. And Michigan had to go to the passing game, had to go to plan B, the passing game, to get the distance on the scoreboard that reflected the vibe of the game. The same thing happened here, but in reverse. All right. Michigan had to go away from the passing game to the run game to get the distance on the scoreboard that you felt by vibe if you watched the game. And that happens particularly when you have a freshman quarterback and 3 redshirt freshman offensive linemen, Mark. It happens. You don't have a great game every week. Some people, though, apparently think that you do, Mark. I'll give you the last word.
Well, I think that Michigan's headed on a path, and we're going to see probably the same effort and results this week against Purdue. Purdue's a much improved football team, kind of like Rutgers transitioning to Greg Schiano. They found themselves a much better head coach than Ryan Walters, so they're going out showing a decent effort every week. They lost in the final play to Rutgers last week. But this is the opportunity for Bryce Underwood to light it up. Looking at this, looked at the highlights, looked at the game stats, 8th in Calcumanis, threw it 27 times, only 27 attempts for 359 yards against that Purdue secondary. So this is the time to try to tighten up the passing game and find something there. And I would like to see a little bit more. Now, I personally don't want to see any more of Michigan improvement, but for the Michigan fan, it would be nice to go out and stomp somebody 42-10.
It would. I don't think it'll be this week, though. It's a really emotional letdown spot. You had the back against the wall game, the in-state rivalry game. You're coming home, playing Purdue. This kind of strikes me as a 28-10, kind of a game. 31-17 kind of strikes me as that kind of a game where, again, you're never going to think Purdue's going to win, but you're like, is Michigan going to make us stay here all the way till midnight before they let us all go home? Or, when are we going to finish these guys off? I do think it's going to be kind of like that. Good to see you again, brother. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
You bet. All right, this week's X-Poll results, your biggest worry for the rest of the season. 59% of you said the passing game. 24% of you said special teams. 17% of you said offensive line depth. That might be mine, actually. Just because there's one more injury at offensive tackle and we're putting a guard there, so. But I think all three of those are justified, which is why I use them for my options. Our feedback of the week comes from Victor Valiant, who says, hey, I'm sure Samaj Morgan is a great kid and teammate, but he's not producing on the field and some of his plays are hurting the offense. That's a reasonable way to say what I said earlier. I've just never seen a Michigan player that has been more consistently permitted to hurt his teammates like Samaj Morgan. And it just happens every single week. And I don't get it. Like, Braylon Edwards dropped too many balls. He also was an alien, okay? Calvin Johnson, led the Lions and dropped passes almost every year of his NFL career. He also was the last son of Krypton, right? When there's true greatness, you take trade-offs. There's no trade-off with Samaj Morgan. It's just all a diminishing return. I've just never seen anything like it. That punt return, first of all, we only have the amount of punts we force with our defense, we have 11 returns all year. That's how bad our punt return team is. He tried returning one against Michigan State, just ran right to where the actual tacklers were. This stuff is inexplicable. And the final straw, again, is when he tackled Justice Haynes in the open field. And Haynes got so pissed off when he got up, he threw Samaj back to the ground. That's metaphor alert. I've never seen anything like this. I don't know if he's got some cousin that we want to recruit in a couple of class. I don't know what the issue is, because it's clearly not performance on any level. And too often, Samaj Morgan's the best player the other team's defense has. So we're all paying way too much money for this product. Guys are all getting paid way too much money. This is just not excusable. And I agree with what Devin and Jake were saying on their podcast. We're at the point now, you just stop blaming the young man. He's not putting himself out there, and he's not going to take himself out. And you got to start looking at the coaches for saying, what are you doing here? Why are you enabling this? There's nobody else. We started the year with 16 wide receivers on the roster. Clearly, there's another player who can't return punts, who can be the worst punt returner in America, if you look at stats among Power 4 teams, and lead the nation in drops. Clearly, there must be a guy that doesn't drop the ball enough and won't keep catching punts inside the 5-yard line. There has to be. There must be. That'll do it for this week's episode of Michigan Podcast. Don't forget to like, rate, subscribe, share, 5-star review. Do those things for us, please. It helps to spread the word about this show. You can also leave your comments in the comment section here as well. We appreciate each and every one of your pieces of feedback, so thank you. You can follow us in between episodes as well at Michigan Podcast on X. That's at Michigan Podcast on X. Until the next time, I'm Steve Deace. Go Blue.